I have worked at Moraine Valley for my entire adult life, and that's no exaggeration. I actually started working at Moraine Valley just a few days after my high school graduation. And what was supposed to have been just a temporary student employment job to take a few computer classes somehow turned into a 17-year career in higher ed, and 2 certificates, 2 associate's degrees, and a bachelor's degree. So back in the 90s, I actually did not even want to come to college at all. Back in the old millennium, I was more interested in just going right to work, getting a job, just, doing something, but not knowing exactly what. So I started working during my senior year of high school in the jobs program, the cooperative work study program, and worked in the guidance office at the high school I was at. And I one day, the counselor asked me to help her with some organization in her office. So I went in and organizing bookshelves and such. One of the books was a catalog for Moraine Valley, and I started looking through it and saw that there were programs that didn't require a complete 2 years or even 4 years of study, and they didn't require math or English or anything like that, the kind of classes that I wasn't so thrilled about in high school. And I thought to myself, why didn't anyone tell me about this in the first place? But no one ever gave that as an option. I think it was intended that, at least in my high school, you're going to a 4-year college and that's it. So unfortunately, I didn't have that knowledge of what community college was, but luckily I stumbled upon it for myself. And from that point, I started talking with the counselors there, and one of them knew someone who worked at Moraine Valley and said they have student employment at Moraine Valley as well. So I applied for that and started working at Moraine Valley, but I was one of the most unlikely candidates to ever want to come to a college. I was very much just, I'm going right to work. I'm done with school and that's it. But then I started working on what became 9 years later, finishing up that bachelor's degree. So I started working in the Academic Advising Center and helping out at the front desk, answering calls. And then I was also part of the new student orientation program, helping students to learn about Moraine Valley and choose their classes for the new semester. And back in those days, we didn't have any computers or anything like that, which they have an online computer component. It was pencil and paper, writing your classes down, overhead projectors with the transparencies and things like that. So I did that during the summertime. Once it was fall, then I started working more with the Counseling and Career Development Center, and I was going to school full-time at that point in the fall and working my part-time student employment job. A vacancy became available for the departmental assistant position, and I just went about my business as normal. But my coworker started encouraging me and said, why don't you apply for this position? You're great at this job. I think you should, apply, put your hat in the ring. And I thought, I don't know, because I was going to school full-time, and that was my intent, was to be a full-time student and a part-time employee. But it seemed like an opportunity that was just too good to pass up, and it was really what I wanted to do in the first place, which was go to work. And, so school became secondary, and I applied and got the job and started working full-time as a departmental assistant. And during that time, I was still going to school at night, so I had days where I came to Moraine Valley at 8 a.m. and didn't leave until 10 p.m. And was working on a certificate in administrative assisting, My professor, Jane Corradetti, was instrumental in helping me to continue my education further than just the certificate. When she took the time to ask me, you're getting your certificate, did you think about going on for the associate's degree? And I said, no, I'm barely liking being in school, now. I did like it, but I was still in the mindset of I just want to get this done so I can just continue forwarding my career on. And she said, she pulled out the degree requirements and said, look, this is how much more you'd need to have done. It's not that much more. And I said, okay. I will, I'm going to continue on with that, finish those few classes, got the associate's in applied science degree. And she said then next, she and a bunch of others, that there was a 2+2 program at GSU to get a bachelor's degree. So I thought, well, why not? I've been going to school part-time all along, might as well just keep on keeping on. I took summers off, some of them, but for the most part I went every semester. I think I knew if I dropped one semester I wasn't going to come back, especially since I got my bachelor's degree about 8 years ago now already, and haven't been back. So I think I was right about that. But I kept on taking those classes and finished the transfer associate's degree from Moraine Valley, and then transferred on for my bachelor's from GSU and received that. All during this time, I was encouraged even more by folks to apply for other jobs, look at the other vacancies. So I applied for a Secretary 2 position for the Dean of Student Services and got that position. And after I was done with my bachelor's degree, saw that there was an opening in the Human Resources office, and I really wanted to work in human resources. My degree was in business, and all along I was thinking, I think HR is a good field for me. So I was hired into the Human Resources office, but none of that would have been possible without that bachelor's, and then of course that wouldn't have been possible without the associate's degree, and none of that would have been possible without Jane Corradetti, Joanne Wright, and so many other counselors and advisors that I can't even begin to name them all. If it wasn't for them taking the time to say, what are you doing? Here's what we think you're capable of. Why don't you go pursue that? And them asking me, how are you? And just, caring. And I think that was such a big part of Moraine Valley, why I wanted to stay. And they definitely made an impact in my life, all of the faculty and staff whom I've worked with all throughout the years now. So I think it goes to show the power of what higher ed and education in general is capable of. For example, going back to my high school years, I was still in my junior year in that mindset of I just want to go to work, no college. I was talking with my typing instructor, or she was talking with me. She took the initiative to say, what are you doing this summer? And I said, I'm just probably going to try to find a job, and senior year, I'll finish senior year and then it'll be that. And she said, well, did you think about the jobs program for your senior year? I said I did, but I don't have a car, so I can't get to a job. And she said, no, there's positions on campus here at the high school. I'll talk to somebody in guidance office, we'll get you set up. And so I said, great. So that was really, the beginning conversation for the rest of my life, my school, my career, and so on. So, that one conversation changed my whole life, and I think that's something that is so important when we look at the importance of teachers, faculty, staff, colleges, high schools, and so on. Education is so important. People are so important. So taking the time to care about me, that I'm so grateful to her and every other faculty and staff member along the way at Moraine Valley who did some of the same. There's a few things that I remember about how the campus used to be as well. I remember the old T building where now it's segregated into classrooms. But back in the day, it was just all open. I remember walking in when I was still in high school and seeing a sea of computers, and many of my classes were in the T building, so I had classes right next to other classes there in the open in the T building. When it was time between classes, I would come to the library, and I remember had a fountain on the first floor of the library that I loved to sit by and listen to the water and study. And I remember how the counseling center used to look as well. We had still some older furniture. We had ashtrays still in the end tables, and of course today we're a smoke-free campus, so definitely a difference. Across from the counseling center, right across from the counseling center where I worked, we also had the Culinary Arts students in the old College Center building. So I remember there were days where they'd come out with wonderful trays of food and enticing, and I was trying to lose weight, but it was so good. One time they also said, "Can you come and help us and sit and be part of our restaurant because we need to serve a restaurant setting or whatnot?" And I said, "Well, yeah, this job is amazing." So I remember that. I also remember early on in my career in Moraine Valley, it was during 9/11, and when the planes hit the buildings, I was still on my way to campus. Once I got to campus, I was at my desk, and one of my coworkers came in and said that a plane had hit the World Trade Center. And I said, of course, wow, that's shocking, oh my goodness. But I went about my day because in my mind, I was picturing some sort of little, Cessna or something that just kind of bounced off the building, and, that's horrible, but I didn't understand the tragic, impact yet. So at my desk, we had across the hall from us, that was where the Moraine rooms were in the College Center, the meeting rooms. Somebody came over and asked for 100 copies of this big giant packet, and they forgot to make copies. And I said, well, I don't want to put that on my department's budget. my dean wouldn't like that so much. So I tracked down whose meeting this was and took the papers over to that department to make the copies. And I was talking to one of my fellow secretaries, and then she was the one who said, no, the planes that hit the building, they were jetliner 747s or what have you. And I thought, oh my goodness. So at that point, I finally understood the impact of it. Back at my desk, things were starting to get crazy, obviously. We had a number of phone calls from some of the staff's family who were in New York or in Washington, D.C., or whom were working in the Sears Tower in Chicago or downtown. And of course, everyone is worried about everyone at that point. So I was fielding a lot of phone calls, transferring a lot of calls, trying my best to go on the internet to see what, get any kind of information I could. But the CNN and those sort of sites were bombarded with traffic from the same, so there wasn't a whole lot of information I could get. So I was kind of going on hearsay a lot of it. I remember too that at some point during the morning, some of the faculty and staff started gathering in Moraine Room 4, which was a little breakout room across the way, and there was a television in that room. Everyone was gathered around. Because I was working the phones, I didn't get much chance to get over there, but I did for a moment, saw the burning and what have you. Then once later in the day, the college made the decision around, later to close campus. So campus closed around 4 p.m. And at that point, was able to tell students who were calling, yes, college is closed for the evening. And when I went home is where I was able to see the impact once watching on the television. So that was my memories about that day. But overall, I just wanted to say, Moraine Valley has definitely had an impact in my life. It's been a wonderful experience, 17 years here so far, and enjoying every minute of it.